Hello, Crossroads Motel. Meg Richardson speaking. Marvellous, isn't it? I've got a bit of a thing on about. I never used to watch Crossroads. Never ever watched Crossroads in my life. But I binge watched all 3 episodes of Nolly with Helena Bonham Carter. Thought it was fantastic. And then I watched the documentary, The Real Nolly, narrated by Helena Bonham Carter. I thought it was bloody marvellous. Absolutely marvellous. Ladies and gentlemen, when he walks down the street, they throw palm fronds on the pavement and bow down and go, "He is here, yea, verily, he has arrived. He is the king of New Malden. He is." The smiling little cherubic countenance
Crossroads.
That is Neil Long. Yeah, Crossroads.
I have not heard that theme for eons.
Do you want to hear it again? Here we go.
Yes, Miss Luke.
Written by my mate Tony Hatch, who also wrote Neighbours. Paul McCartney did a version of this as well. Did you know that?
Sorry?
Paul McCartney did a version of this.
Really?
Yeah, did.
Was he at a crossroads in his career?
I went down to the crossroads, tried to flag myself a right. What are you doing now? What the hell's that? Is that your Benny hat?
Yes, Miss Luke.
Christ. Oh, God. Now, talking of things ridiculously hilarious, special guest. We've got two guests today, but let's start. He is one of the most debonair men in the world. He's also very, very charming, and he seems to know absolutely bloody everybody. He's my pal and your pal, Mr. Stephen Smith. Look at
Hello,
you.
Stephen Smith.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, you working on the life? You working on the lifeboats today, or what? What are you wearing? What is that?
Very nice. It's a pinstripe with a little
it's
red.
pinstripe. I couldn't see that. Now, Stephen, we need you to turn your camera in from portrait to landscape, please.
Oh,
because we've
right.
only got a little bit of you, and we want to see you in your full magnificence.
I have problems as usual. Now, how do I do that?
I have no idea. You twist it. You just twist the whole camera around.
Oh.
Oh, no. Now you're just upside down. No. Keep going. That. Leave it. I would be here forever. Right. Robert Van Buren. Do you know Robert Van Buren? One of my closest friends, Neil? Never met him.
Hello,
Never met him
RVB.
at all. Hello, Russ and Neil. And let's go to Houston, Texas. There we go. Stephen, that's way better. Where's he gone?
Morning, y'all, from Texas, where spring has arrived. Forecast today is 75 degrees and sunny.
Blimey, all right. My son will be phoning me and going, "Hey, Dad, look at the weather." And I'm going, "Oh, shut up." Because it's always terrible here. Dave Sleep. What day are we meeting this week, Dave? Let me know, please.
Greetings, one and all, says Dave.
Barry J.
Allen. Good afternoon. Busy weekend, trying to make the house dad-proof. Now he's on his own.
Ooh. And from Houston in Texas, let's fly up, courtesy of somebody or other, to go to New York City. Elizabeth Green, morning, New York. Right.
Morning from New York.
Now then, Stephen Smith.
Good morning. I loved Nolly. It was wonderful, wasn't it?
It was sensationally good. I thought it was excellent.
I have an addiction to box sets, so I had to do all three in one evening.
So did I.
Russ, it's a huge mistake at 9 o'clock at night to turn anything on for me. I'm still there at 2 in the morning.
Oh, me too. I normally go to bed between 3 and 4 every morning. It's a terrible illness.
You're like a rolling stone.
Yeah, I know. It's a terrible illness. So, Stephen, one day you'll be getting your own series, if I live that long, here on Men's Radio Station. It's a day that I look forward to very, very much with the LGBT, and I can't remember the rest of it, but you know what I mean.
Oh, apparently. I get confused with it all as well with the letters. I just know it's a world full of people that don't fit into boxes sometimes, and it's a world where people should be accepted for who they are.
I think they are.
I don't really need labels.
Well, this is the whole thing. Why does everybody and I think Neil's probably on board as well. Why does everybody have to be labeled? You're just people, and kind of that's it.
I did wonder why there's so many letters now. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just curious.
There's a woman called Rosie Parker running around at the moment, terrifying people. Trans people are running into women's toilets with penises, which doesn't mean they're trans, and raping women. If that's the case, we should and terrify them. We should shut down the police force, because there's more cases of policemen doing that than trans people. But she's terrifying them. And one woman said, "I couldn't possibly let my child be nursed by a trans person." Now, I guarantee you it's the same person, if a child had 20 minutes to live and a trans person turned up, would just cry for help. It's just outrageous. And as
why the hysteria?
Because also, for starters, Posey's another Katie Hopkins. She's trying to get her name out there. She's leapt onto the trans section, and it's a trans. I have to say, trans community sometimes don't do themselves a lot of favors.
Precisely.
By banning people, etc. But at the same time, Rosie's out there on television, and she's telling people that, my goodness, my kids are being corrupted, and just terrifying people. And she's quite wrong. Many people in the trans community, for starters, agree with some things that people are saying. They're frightened to say it, because every time someone says, "No, I don't want an 8-year-old to be deciding they're a girl at that age when they're actually born a boy," they're banned, or people are getting upset about.
Do you know what's happened, Stephen? I have avoided bringing any of this subject up on the Daily Show quite deliberately until I knew you were on, because I feel that you can speak about it and I can't, and I might say the wrong things, God forbid.
Well, that's the problem, Russ. That's the problem. You should be. Look, I was literally doing something called Autism's Got Talent recently.
With Anna.
We had
Anna Kennedy, who's one of our. Just going to read this. Saying we wish everybody well in Turkey. Obviously, we wish everybody well. Though.
Yes, we should mention Turkey.
And what does this mean? Let's just pause for a minute. This is coming in from New York State from Asa, right? LGBT, right? So lesbian, gay, bisexual, Q for queer, and I still don't know what queer means. T for, help me out, transgender.
Transgender.
I for having a clue. A, having a clue. Don't know. I genuinely don't know. No idea. What is it?
Bisexual. So lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and queer. And I'm no idea what the XQ's been added for, but apparently it has, and I should really have done my research.
So Stephen, what's queer?
Well, it's just being different.
Isn't that gay? Am I being thick here? I thought that was gay. These are genuine questions, by the way.
Yeah, just being different. There's a lot out there at the moment, and people want to be accepted for who they are. But my big thing is you don't get people accepting unless you educate them. And I was trying to explain to you at the Anna Kennedy's thing, we had two trans performers, and Jack came on stage and explained that even though biologically he'd been born a girl, he was now a boy, and he understood that a lot of the older generation wouldn't get it. But please ask any questions you like. And that
How old was this kid? 18. All right, 18. Well, 18 is not 6. That's where I draw the. You see, this is where I get.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to say here is, there's some people that when they say, "No, I don't think," and let's face it, some of the biggest tomboys I knew are now girls, gorgeous girls that love the boys, and vice versa. They do change. 8's too young, in my opinion, as we say. And there's these trendy parents that want to have a trans child, and again, I wouldn't let my child have their ears pierced at 8 years old. So
precisely so.
So
you see, Dave Sleet up in Fife in Scotland, unless he's come down to London yet, hysteria is usually based in fear fueled by lack of knowledge. Yes,
yeah, I agree, and I would find it.
Oh, here we go. Chantel, hello, Chanters. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, absolutely know what the hell that is, queer or questioning, lost me again, asexual, and many other terms such as non-binary and pansexual. That's pansexual, just greedy.
No,
greedy.
But
that's what it is.
Unfair. It's you just find people attractive, which a lot of people do. I think it used to be called bisexual, new word for it, and it's just you find people attractive. So it could be a man, a woman, a trans, or anyone. You just find people attractive, and there are a lot of people like that.
But that's okay. I mean, that's okay. Here's where I think the trouble starts. Here's where I think people who are just trying to mind their own business have a lot of problems. There's two key areas. One is when a bloke identifying as a woman is banged up in a women's prison and is getting the women prisoners pregnant. You tell me that's right. No, it's not. It's
right.
not right.
But
it's not right.
However, we have to think here. This is the problem. If you still have a penis, you're not a woman. Right? If you've had the work's done, you've done the 2 years therapy, and you've transferred into a woman, then you identify as a woman. If you still have a penis, you're not going to a woman's prison. You shouldn't.
That would make sense. But Stephen, you see, that's why I wanted you. That's why I always want you on the show. You know that. And that's why I want you to have your own show, because there's so much that you can bring to this. That would make logical sense. But people on social media we've got record numbers watching, by the way, screaming and shouting. If God forbid, gay Stephen Smith says, if you've got a penis, you're not a woman. Oh, you're going to get trolled like crazy.
A woman. What I'm saying is, if you've had the works done and you are a woman and you've done the work, put the work in, you deserve the respect, and then that's fine. Go to a women's prison. Well, but at the same time, you can't be going to prison, a women's prison, if you still have a penis.
Well, that would make sense. You see, that's Neil. Help me out here.
Otherwise, I think.
Go on, Neil.
I think it, and people seem to think it's quite a flip, a sort of everyday, a casual decision to transition. It's not. Like you say, there's an awful lot of work. There's an awful lot of therapy. I know a trans person, and we're very good friends. And so I ask them, lots about it, because they're not feelings that I've ever had. But from a mental health point of view, I imagine if my whole identity, or what I identified as, suddenly trans and became something else, that could be a very delicate time from a mental health point of view. And that's where I think people like this deserve respect and support from everyone. I'm not bothered by what sexuality or gender anybody is. I never have been. It's never been an issue for me.
I heard you say you were on a ride with 12 gay men last time I was listening into the show.
Say that again.
You were on a fair ride with 12 gay men once. I think it was you who was on the show.
No. I shared a theme park with 10,000 gay people.
10,000.
What the hell?
I was on holiday in America, and I love roller coasters. So I went to the roller coaster park. Can't remember the name of it now. It's the big one in California. What's it called? It'll come to me. But anyway, not Universal. And it was shut. It was shut for the day. Busch Gardens. That was it.
Busch Gardens. Yes.
And it was shut for the day because it was the annual gay gathering, and all the gay folks started to turn up. And I got talking, and they said, "Are you gay friendly?" I went, "Yeah, sure." So it was me and 10,000 gay people, and I shared that ride with probably about 30. So yeah. So as I say, no issues on my part at all.
There's be no worry about who's. I always get very bored when people ask me questions like, "Ooh, what was it like when you came out?" And I think, "Oh, okay. Have you ever been with a woman?" And I think, "So, do you know what? I have trekked Peru. I've jumped out of a plane. The things I've done." The one thing you're looking at is, straight men that go, "Well, I don't mind girls as long as they don't come on to me." And I think, "But darling, there's absolutely no coming on to you."
Do people still say that?
That's another assumption.
Do people
Straight
still
men
say
assume
that,
that every gay man is going to fancy them. Well, I don't fancy every woman I see, for God's sake.
I don't mind the gays, me, as long as you leave me alone. I went, "Well, trust me, they will."
Yeah, as long as you don't shove it down my throat. I've heard that 1,000 times. Yeah.
No chance of that happening, love. Do you, Stephen, do you think that all of this, let's be honest here, the transgender community is tiny. It is a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the population of the world. According to the media, you would think 1 in 2 people were transitioning. It is quite extraordinary, the amount of media coverage that it's got, just huge.
The numbers are not official, but the people that are there are either among our army, they're first aiders, they're productive people. They're not all models, actresses, or prostitutes, or running around prisons. As I said, if we were going to pick somebody that's we should look at the police force. There are more cases of rapes among the police force than there are trans people.
That is true. That is true.
Pointing that out. You know,
Do you think another question I've been dying to ask is,
yeah,
do you think all this we're trying to squeeze in huge issues here in
yeah.
30 minutes. So I don't want it to be like Good Morning Britain. Okay. We don't
No.
operate like that. Do you think that all of the transgender hoo-ha has taken the spotlight away from the gay community? Do you think they've advanced, or do you think their cause has suffered, or do you think it's been slightly parked?
Good question.
That's a really interesting question. I think it's taken a slight highlight of the LGBT gay community. But however, it doesn't go away. It's just not being highlighted just now. You still have papers that are homophobic. You still have people that are homophobic, and still gay people are threatened every day in the street to just being themselves.
See, it's fascinating. It's fascinating you say that. Yeah, I'm obviously spoiled because I'm born and bred in London. When I wasn't here, I lived in New York, right? So, and I spent time in California, the most gay-friendly places.
Yes,
you could imagine. And as
San
you know,
Francisco
and as
in
Neil
particular, I
knows,
would
when
imagine.
I'm working, I'm normally in Soho, the
Yeah.
centre of, gay popularity
That's
in
been ruined.
London. So of course I would never see that. You wouldn't see anybody gay getting hassled in Soho. It's just it's like, it's just not going to happen.
Subject that was really important, and the government have brought in laws against it, is this conversion therapy.
This disgusts me.
No, you see, yeah, they should be in jail. They should be in jail. I'm sorry.
The horrors of kids being sent to like a military-style camp to pray to become straight, and and don't know if you saw a couple of years ago, Piers Morgan had Dr. Michael Davison on, a man that couldn't get a shag at a gay brothel, and claims to have been turned straight by
Of course.
prayer.
Yeah.
And
do you think the problem, Stephen? Do you think the problem is that they're using the word camp when you're trying where are you going to? I'm going to camp. Like probably the wrong word.
No, not it's quite serious. This. So Dr. Michael Davis,
I know.
Right, he's a converted straight man. My question would have been, and the same for you. Do you think if I took you, Russ, to a camp or a place and gave you masses of prayer and therapy, I could turn you gay?
No.
So why the hell would it?
It's not going to happen.
What did it actually do?
No.
Because God is straight, Stephen. I thought you knew that.
Well,
because
clearly,
God is straight.
and homophobic, it would seem. What I'd like to say to these religious... I'll let you finish, sorry.
So just on to here. So basically what they're doing is taking people that have already been traumatized because their families haven't accepted who they are, and believe it or not, that's a horrific thing for someone to go through, right? Yes. Put them in a camp and they say, I'm going to turn you straight. Now, at best, they might be able to push it down, and you're guaranteed these are the same people you'll find in cottages, or like the Republicans that preach against gay people you find with the rent boys and things. It's a horrific thing to do to people, and luckily they've included trans people, because at one point they weren't including trans people in this and saying it was okay for them to have conversion therapy, but it's a horrific thing that we allowed in this country, and in America it's still going on, which basically will traumatize gay people more.
Now, let me be clear on this. Conversion therapy is illegal in this country, isn't it?
Now it is. Only recently.
Good.
Only recently.
It is bonkers.
And I totally accept your point. You could take me to Lourdes, dunk me in the holy water, and pray over me all day, and I'm not going to turn gay. I'm just not. And to think that they can think you can work the other way around, these religious freaking nutcases, it angers me. And it angers me from the mental health point of view, because the trauma, like you say, it's trauma on trauma. It's effing disgusting, and it really pisses me off.
No, you're quite right. It's disgraceful.
The suicide rate among LGBTQ people that have gone on these things is so high, because it's enforcing that they're not right. Because then, sadly, still to this day, for the majority of people, when the kid comes out, they're not that happy. They don't go, well done, or congratulations. I mean, it's much better than it was. There's families that accept, but the most, it's not. Well, I get grandchildren. Well, oh my God, what have I done wrong? And so the trauma.
Nothing. You've done nothing wrong. And
life all the way through. That's why there's more addiction among the LGBT community, and it's rife. You know, we have a huge issue in London at the moment with chemsex, with people going to parties and taking drugs because they can't accept who they are. You know?
Yeah, I actually read a book on that. I read books on this stuff out of interest. There was a book called Something for the Weekend, and it was about someone stuck in the chemsex thing.
Chemsex?
People medicate. You forget that it doesn't go away. You know, if you've gone through a horrific experience at home, you know, some kids are chucked out of home because they don't want them, which is actually the better thing to do, because if you stay in an environment which is toxic and you're not liked, or you've done something, you're made to feel you've done something wrong, which is, you haven't done anything wrong. You just
this is what confuses me, and I don't want to get onto religion too much, but this is what confuses me about religious people. I'll always remember, and I've met some lovely religious people. I'm not talking about them, but the ones I'm talking about, we all know the kind. And there was a line on The Simpsons where Bart says, "I'm going to Bible school to learn to be more judgmental," and the more superior, and the more superior people think they are, the more inferior the way they act. If they think they've got superiority because God is on their side, then that gives them kind of license, carte blanche, to treat people in a terrible way in alignment with their own beliefs.
They have taken
their own belief systems, their own BS.
Let's see what Emma Webb.
Let's
see what Emma Webb has to say, because she's so supportive of Men's Radio. I'm a part of said LGBT plus community. Didn't know that, Em? Good for you. And find others' confused behaviours rather daft. Leave us alone, folks. Let us be.
Exactly.
Well, precisely so.
Here's the thing.
I want to dive. Let me dive into this, because Stephen, while we've got you, and you know you're always welcome on the show. I think everything gets mixed into a complete mess, which is why when we listen to you, Stephen, as a gay man, it's important that you also and the gay community share some of the concerns that everybody else has about some of the excesses of transgender. Before everyone starts screaming at me, let me just say what I mean. If you're a child, you should be left to be a child. I think we're all, I don't speak on other people's behalf. That's my view. I know it's Neil's view. I'm pretty sure it's your view from what you've been saying this morning, Stephen. You know, if you're a child, don't start giving them puberty blockers at 4. They're 4 years old. They're 4 years old. Stop. I just think that's shocking. I personally think that's shocking. And I'm sure the gay community think that as well.
I think the gay community and a lot of trans people think the exact same. I think that my issue is there's such, when you go to school, you're so pushed into boys play football, girls do this. And I think that section should be changed around and allow people, nobody's going to make you feel bad because they don't want to play football. Or they don't want to play with dolls and either play with a girl, would rather play with an army guy, or
toy soldiers. I think we're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, you know, we're talking about allowing people to be themselves. But I wouldn't stop announcing you have a trans child in 2.5 minutes. Let them be until they get to a certain age, then they can make their own decision.
Let them be, and that's the loveliest thing. Why do we think? I mean, on whose, if you like, authority are people jumping in and trying to interact? It's what we think people should be. We want to put people in boxes.
Well, you know? Before we all get huggy,
and it breeds ignorance.
But before we all get huggy feely and you know, hugging trees and all the rest of that stuff, women, and now I have to say biological women, but really it's just bloody stupid. But women have a right to feel uncomfortable if someone who is obviously a bloke, you're not allowed to say this, I'm saying it, comes into their changing room in, I don't know, Marks and Spencer's, John, doesn't matter where it is, they would feel uncomfortable. They have a right to feel uncomfortable. That is not unreasonable. That's not transphobic.
If we're talking about a transvestite, as opposed to someone that's had the operation, then yes, of course. So I don't particularly want a woman coming to the toilets when I've got my dick out. You know,
there you go.
But however, if it's a trans man that's had the operation and is now a fully fledged man, fine. I don't think the big bone of contention of who's going to the toilet, because at the end of the day, we do it in the street if we're that desperate. I don't think that's a big bone of contention. It's a big bone of contention is people's prejudice and how many trans people are being murdered because of hate, and I think the important thing is education, is telling people and allowing them to listen, and are listening to people that disagree with you, and that's the problem. Is the minute you disagree, they're cut off, or they'll get them off television, get them there.
But do you think it is helpful? Now, I'm a fan of J.K. Rowling. There, I've said it. I like her writing. I enjoyed the Harry Potter books. She gave generation a love of writing, and I like the Cormoran Strike books as well. There we are. I've said it. Okay. Do you think the pylons on social media are against her? And I've read the books, and there is nothing transphobic in them. There seriously isn't. There just isn't. All right. Do you think that's helpful to the argument?
It's
hating this hate. Is it helpful?
I think we've hit on it really twice on the show already. The word loud has been used in the comments. Loud people. There's people that seem to want to shout and jump on any bandwagon or shout their own fears and prejudices out. And unfortunately, social media has given people a platform that really, in my opinion, don't really deserve it.
But it's hatred. It's this
and the hatred, I would guess,
and
comes
death threats.
Well, I would guess it comes from ignorance. I was once doing a podcast with a client, and the podcast was called A Diary of a Trans Man or something like that. And it never came off in the end. I need to contact them again. But we had long discussions about it. And he was saying, he's saying, there is a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of bad things happening to trans people.
But the trans brigade threatening to kill somebody like J.K. Rowling, that's a bad thing as well.
And that's
Are we allowed to say that, or is that the end of we're all cancelled now?
Saying the straight community, because there's a small section that are right fascists speak for the whole straight community. They don't. There's a small minority of the trans community that are full of hate and but the rest of them, for many of great people that do a lot of work, help, and are educate. So we can't judge. We can't judge straight people because we have people like we'll name them, but they're out there shouting hate and
hate is hate. Hate doesn't discriminate between gender. Hate is hate.
So you can't say that, again.
See, the trouble is as well, Stephen, one of the problems is you mentioned, for example, Katie Hopkins. Now, I interviewed Katie Hopkins. I had her on the Daily Show.
Yeah.
And then we took I made a big mistake. It's the one time I listened to other people. I wanted the interview to go out, and I asked the team. They weren't comfortable.
Yeah.
And so I never aired it. Oh. And Katie wasn't happy about that. I think it was a huge lost opportunity. In real life, she's not that person. She's not that person.
So the Katie
I'm
Hopkins.
not saying I'm a huge fan. Some of the stuff she says is terrible. Some of it, but she's not that person when you speak to her.
When you have dinner with them once, aren't that person. You get a different person, but this is the person that created bullying against redhead people. This is the person that created bullying against, and there were actually hate crimes due to voice. Is an attention seeking.
Well, that was the job, wasn't it? That was the job. And the point I'm trying to make is I'm not here as a Katie Hopkins apologist. Here's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
There are certain people who are employed by very large media organizations. Be provocative, get the clicks, get the outrage, and stir it up. You know that, I know that.
Russell Howard, the comedian, did a brilliant sketch on this, and he called it hate farming. And it was all explained. It was explained why it was done. And you're absolutely right. It's to get clicks, and it's about money, and it's to sell things. And for me, that can't be right when we're talking about people's well-being and mental health. And if perfectly decent people, trans or otherwise or anything, are getting attacked on the street because of ignorance and because of gobby loud people, that is not the kind of society I want to be a part of. I'm sorry. As I said, I've got a dear friend who's trans, and the idea of someone harming him would really upset me.
Let's look at this from Stephen. Look at this. This is coming in from Manhattan. Elizabeth Green. I have 2 trans friends who have not had the slip. They are fully female. You see, that's a non sequitur. That's a non sequitur, Elizabeth. They can't be. I have 2 trans friends who have not had the slip. They are fully female. Well, why? Why are they fully female? They have boyfriends. So what? You see, that's not a logical flow.
I admit there's a lot I don't
I'm not having
understand.
a go at you, Elizabeth. I'm just saying there's a flaw in the logic.
There is a flaw in the logic there, and it's insulting to the trans people that have had all the work done. They have to work into this thing, and anyone that dares say that they're not, once they've done all the work, etc., it's hugely insulting. But I just don't believe that we can say that someone that hasn't had the work done is a female.
It's a really good question to ask, actually, Stephen. What is a proper definition of trans? Because these terms are bandied around. So if I'd never heard the term before and I asked you, what would you say to me?
Someone that's had a complete operation and or undergo, they can be called. I mean, technically, they used to have to go through 2 years of therapy and then got the operation. If you saw George and Julia many years ago, if you saw that, and she had the operation, you went through the whole journey with her. I think she could identify herself as a female, but once she had the work done, the rest of the world can call it a female.
Stephen, have you got time to stay while our next guest comes on? Would you like to?
So can I just
absolutely. Come on.
Can I put a little thing here? The thing about the religion, just one thing here is important here, as they keep highlighting this tiny little bit about gay people from the Bible, yet it says that we can have slaves in the Bible as long as they come from a neighboring village, and that men should be stoned to death in the house when a woman's having her period. Do we see any of that going on?
Can I just share something here very quickly? I think there's
Don't
Bible
get me
scholars,
started. Don't get me started.
Bible scholars, and some I completely disagree with, and some are a lot more forward-thinking and quite enlightened and can maybe get the deeper meaning of what was perhaps trying to be told. And I heard this version about gay people, and I was like, of course. The description in the Bible was, I seem to remember the word abomination was used. Now, we use the word abomination nowadays to mean something terrible. It's an abomination. Apparently, according to these rather enlightened scholars, it didn't mean terrible back then, had a completely different meaning. It meant breaking ritual. And apparently, the tribes are very small. They wanted to grow, and obviously, sleeping with the same sex is not going to reproduce. So it was said that if you were gay, you were simply breaking ritual. And it was no more morally reprehensible than saying you're not going to smoke and then smoking. Do you know what I mean?
Or them not lying down with men. I don't think I've ever laid down with one, but
anyway. And then it struck me, if there's been years of cruelty and bigotry against gay people all over something that was written all that time ago and is misinterpreted, that's a pretty crazy world.
Well, you know what? When my final thing, then we must get the next guest on, who's been very patient. It's this: if you've got a book of mainly fiction that is so open to anybody's interpretation because it's so freaking vague, right? You are asking for a shed load of trouble. It's as simple as
it's not vague at all. It's very clear. God loves you and you're going to burn in hell. It's all right.
Thank you, George Carlin. Let's bring on our next guest, Charlie Lambdin. Charlie,
I love talking to you, Stephen.
Charlie, how are you?
Hello there. I'm very well, thanks, Russ. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you for being patient. That's all I have to say. And tell us all about yourself.
Hey, Charlie,
there's some very nice fashion go. I've got to say this, and I wouldn't normally, because my fashion is, of course, today Ebony the mini schnauzer, who's just over there. But very nice fashion. Stephen with his pinstripe. It's like a pinstripe hoodie. I don't know what it is. You with your rather Roger Moore.
Quite trendy.
It's very nice. It's very nice. So, tell us all about yourself.
Wow. Let's just start with a big question.
Start at the beginning, as Julie Andrews
said. Yes, and you've got 10 seconds to do it, starting now.
Well, thanks very much for having me on your shows for my first time here.
Absolute pleasure.
Russ,
and hopefully not the last.
No, hopefully not the last. I'd love to. Very much happy to contribute whenever I can. Russ, and I do just have to say I'm a little bit starstruck talking to you because back in the 90s, I used to listen to you in my car when you were doing the flying eye.
What about me? I was doing overnights back then.
What about you? What about you, Neil?
Yeah, what about me? All night long.
And especially as now I'm a hobbyist, I'm a private pilot, and I fly out of Elstree, which I think is where you were based, wasn't it? So
the place that was the epicenter of my entire working life for 20 years every morning. God,
Yeah.
Elstree Aerodrome. How lovely. Well, please fly safely. That's the main thing.
yes,
That's the main
absolutely
thing.
right.
Before we get it, what do
Absolutely
you
right.
fly? What do you normally fly in?
A Cessna 182.
Okay. So that's a single prop, right?
Single engine, 4-seater, yeah. And then, but
Lovely.
seaplanes are my hobby, my passion. So it's to answer your question. I think the shortest answer to your question to tell me about me is that my life dream. I'm a father. I've got 3 kids, 7, 6, and 7 months old.
God
and
almighty,
I'm working
you're
towards
busy.
we homeschool them as well, and I'm working towards my dream trip, which is to take them all around the world in a seaplane. And right now, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough flying experience to do that. I haven't got enough time, but that's what I'm working towards. So I'm trying to build my pilot experience, get my kids ready for that, and then hopefully just create a lifelong family memory with them. But it's a pipe dream at the moment, but that's what I'm working towards. And with my work, I front a moving home channel called Moving Home with Charlie, where I share my 25 years of insights from work. I've been a supplier to estate agents for nearly 25 years.
What does that mean? You supply? What do you mean?
I've supplied them with software. So they're back office database software where they store all their buyers and all their sellers and all their properties, and we upload the properties to Rightmove and Zoopla. And and the fascinating thing about that is that I've been able to see the truth of what happens at the coalface in the moving industry. All right. And not just one agent, but agents of all sizes, big and small, all over the country. Yeah. There was a London bias to it, but I mean, Scotland, Liverpool, Manchester, everywhere, all over the country. And 25 years of working, never been an estate agent.
Oh, thank you, because otherwise we'd have to say goodbye. And if you used to listen to the Breakfast Show, Tarrant and myself just had it in for estate agents.
I know.
I remember Tarrant and Co. off the back of it.
Oh yes. Then they started Tarrant.
The estate agents actually named themselves after all this
back to us.
Heard on the Tarrant Breakfast Show. They called them Tarrant and Co. It was a brilliant bit of piss taking. I loved it.
I've forgotten that, Neil.
Well, listen, it's really important that whilst I would not disagree that the majority of estate agents don't help themselves and kind of deserve that reputation, it's really important for people who are moving house to understand that they are not all the same. And when it comes to moving, your choice of agent is critical. And if you end up with a crap one, expect your house on the shelf and not get you moving, to miss your move and miss the school, everything else. But if you think they're all the same, you end up picking a cheap one and go, well, they're just going to chuck it on Rightmove anyway. So what's the point in paying a higher fee?
Yeah.
And that's a really fatal mistake, because if they don't sell it for you at all, what have you saved? Nothing. And there's no rule that says bigger ones or smaller ones are better. It's about finding the individual human being that you actually think, hang on, this is someone I do trust, and I can see that they're not going to let me down. They're not going to just say after a few months, oh, sorry, we couldn't sell it. Because moving house is more about the move than it is about the money. It's about moving on to the next stage of your life. And actually, that segues quite nicely into I think one of the topics you wanted to talk about, which is the effect of stress on your state of mind.
I think moving is one of the most stressful. It's in the top 5 of all-time stressful things. Everything about it. I think it's number 2 after grief, isn't it?
After divorce. Divorce is number 1.
Is it?
And moving is number 2.
Oh,
Charlie, do you have a resource page we can put on the website, on the screen for people to look at?
Yes, certainly. mhwc.co.uk. Moving Home with Charlie. mhwc.co.uk. I also have a property website called Best Agent, which is a national property website where I'm aiming to provide a more forward-looking version of Rightmove and Zoopla and that kind of stuff. So we've got all the national properties there. But moving, I mean, my working life's mission has been to make moving easier for everyone involved by bringing technology into the process. And I've worked with agents, good and bad, and I really mean really good and super bad.
Let me ask you a question, and Stephen, please jump in with your experiences as well. I've got to tell you, my experiences with them are uniformly terrible. Honestly, I wish I could say, oh, I met so-and-so. They were marvelous.
The third
just terrible.
Yes, you've got the tax. taxman, you've got the accountant, and then you have estate agents in the three circles
Now-
of hell. And the-
The statistics and the odds are that will be most people's experience, because in my experience of working, and just a little bit of qualification, I mean, I was a judge at the Sunday Times Estate Agent of the Year contest, and I'm a commentator and a writer in the property sector, so I do know my stuff. And what I can tell you is that, roughly speaking, and it varies a little bit regionally, about 15%, about 3 out of 20 estate agents are really good. And the problem is they are often the hardest ones to find, because the problem is that we, the public, especially the uninitiated moving public, punish honest estate agents by not giving them business. So they're really hard to find.
It's ignorance again, isn't it?
It is. So oh, that's good.
When I saw, would you like to read this, Neil, if you'd be so kind?
Yeah, I will. I'm just going to swap around a bit, so you have you at the top.
There we go.
So
We've got
our
guest
taken off, not you.
Much better.
Leslie DeMazer. When I sold my late mother's home, I had the most wonderful estate agents that gave me excellent advice, lots of help, and the home was sold in 10 days. Since then, I recommended them to lots of others who's been delighted. Maybe it helped they are independent and not parent of some huge group. So thank you, Stone and Butters in Stanmore. Shout out for you. Interestingly, Charlie, my mum used to be an estate agent, and she loved her job and she was really good at it. And I think she was one of the good guys, as it were. She would whoop the asses of all the young lads in the office and do better than them. But she did tell me stories. I'll tell you off air. I won't name them on air. But I did hear the names of some, and she's like, "Don't go near them. Don't go near them." You know, absolute cowboys.
This in from Ramsey,
Wall Street types. You know.
Yeah, this in from Ramsey. This is what's important, Charlie, because this is one of the hooks that I wanted you to come onto the show. Top 10 most stressful life events in the Holmes and Ray, I'm going to pronounce it Ray, scale. A death of a spouse or a child is 100. Precise, that's what I thought. Divorce, 73. Marital separation, 65. Imprisonment, well, that ain't good, 63. Death of a close family member. I'd like to add friend into that, 63. What about you, Stephen? Family member and friend.
Right.
Personal injury or illness, 53. Marriage, 50. Dismissal from work, well, we've all been there, 47. Marital reconciliation is 45. And
so getting married is more stressful than getting remarried.
Hang on, but what? Retirement, 45. Wow.
Oh my God, you need to. I just can I jump in here? In America, actually take a license to become an estate agent and go to school. In France, you actually take a degree course, and in many other countries. In this country, you leave public school, you jump in, you're called Giles, and you arrive and go hello and talk patronizingly about do you have a mortgage? I mean, it is a horrific experience. I just dread when one turns up. You can see him coming, and they don't know what they're doing. Some of them, not all of them, but in my experience, and I've sold so many houses over the years, is a dread when they turn up. I actually say to them, please don't tell me about the market. I do read the papers before we get started. And
well, I've got two observations, I think, on what you just said there, and also on the stress list, is that almost all of those life events, except perhaps the first one, are usually events that precipitate needing to move house as well. So you're having to move house when one of those terrible things has happened. So you've often got people who are in a very upset state of mind. This is what makes estate agents' jobs quite difficult, when they're dealing with people who are already going through divorce or loss of their job or debt or separation, that kind of stuff. So, and what I would say is this: I can put my hand on heart and say this honestly. Most of the bad conduct in the estate agency industry it's a question of don't hate the players, hate the game. And the rules of that game are actually set behind the scenes by a small number of very large, powerful companies. And you can't it's those rules or no rules. I mean, if you don't follow those rules, you aren't going to get business. And I have chosen and learned and worked out that most people don't do a bad job on purpose. Very few people will do a bad job on purpose. It's usually down to a lack of training, other problems, that kind of stuff. And so whilst I do not dispute at all the shocking experiences and levels of service a lot of people experience when they're moving house, it is generally unhelpful where the wide media, mainstream media narrative just being generally anti-estate agent. And the reason that's unhelpful to movers is that it leads to people choosing the wrong agent. But Yeah.
See, look at this coming in
it's
from
a real
Houston. This is
minefield.
coming in from Houston, Texas. I'm currently dealing with the first. Julie unfortunately lost her husband, and she's moving house. She's moving from Texas back to the UK, which I keep saying is a terrible mistake, but there you are. She has a choice. So that's
We're going to be
no
virtually neighbours,
forum.
me and Julie, when she moves back.
I'm just thinking, no, Elizabeth, it's not a boys' club. The female estate agents are just as bad. No, I'm not having.
So
that.
let's flip this
sorry.
round, Charlie. What in your
Out.
view makes a great estate agent? What have you learned in your research and life's work?
I can tell you exactly what it is. It is, and it's nothing to do with qualifications or what job they did before. It's not. I promise you, there's no correlation between how well qualified they are and how good they are. Some of the worst crook estate agents I know have been the most qualified. They've got all the letters after their name and everything's still above board, and they are absolute crooks. But here it is. There are some individuals, and they are either running a small independent agency or they maybe work for a large corporate, but they operate to their own personal standards. And the secret is this: where you have an estate agent who ranks their customer's outcome equally with their own priority of making a living, is where you get the best experience, right? If either one of those goes too far one way or the other, you end up with it going wrong. And so where you've got an agent who's more worried about making their commission than they are about helping you is when you're going to have a bad experience. And that's a lot of people, right? Especially if it's the business owner. And for example, you get a highly commission-based office manager who he's jumping around to whichever job's paying the most. He doesn't stay in any place for a very long time. And he just wants to sign you up and move on, right? That's someone who's ranking their own income and earning a living higher as a priority than their customers' experience. Whereas when you get people who actually go, my future reputation as an agent depends upon how well my customers, how well they do having chosen me as an agent, right? So where they rank their personal reputation, which is tied to their customers' move with their ability to make an income, those are the best ones. And they're the ones who don't make so much money in the short term, but in the long term, they end up being the ones that everyone says, oh my God, there's only one person.
Do you know what,
call.
Charlie? I'm going to wind this right the way back to our earlier conversation at the top of the show with Stephen. And there's one word that estate agents don't seem to have in their vocabulary. And that's a big generalization, but go with it for the sake. Empathy. Empathy. If you don't have empathy in life, things get pretty out of whack at a fast pace. Somebody walks into the house, you need to be able, and it's like with me and Neil or any other broadcaster, you have to feel out the guest.
Yeah.
And if someone's up for a laugh, fine. And if someone isn't, whatever. So you're walking into somebody's home, their home, the one place they feel or should feel safe. It's their home in a pretty nasty, grim world where it can be rough. And then somebody enters their home and either treats them with great condescension, or they're rude, or they're arrogant, or they're not picking up on, I'm going to call it the vibe, the atmosphere. And I think that's what really, when I sold my house in a house in North London, which I sold, and some of the estate agents were ludicrous, and some came in and put it at a price. I said, this price is madness. You're never going to, no, we know what we're doing. I said, no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't know what you're doing. It's quite obvious. If you took the time to just look at what houses of a similar nature are selling for just up the road and down the road, you won't put it on at that price. This is not, I will get it for you. No, you won't. You won't even get anyone to look at it. That's what I'm talking about. There's no empathy there. And life, like Stephen, when we were talking about the gay community and the transgender, if you haven't got empathy, you know.
Charlie, I have cladding in my home at the moment. Oh, permanently, and these twice in the building. And the nightmare I'm going through with estate agents, they still claim they can sell it. And even I explain to them very carefully with the cladding, and we get offers in, and we get to the last hour, and the guy, oh, the cladding's an issue. I don't understand how they even showed the people my apartment without mentioning the cladding to start with.
So that's the classic example.
Yeah, that's nuts. How can you not do that? It's like
Well, do you
saying,
want me to
well,
answer
actually,
that
I forgot
point?
to mention it's next to an airport. Oh. No, Elizabeth's saying that I
It's-
can't, but Elizabeth, I'm sorry. Try being a divorced woman selling a house. Well, there's about 50% of the women out there are divorced and they are selling houses.
I would
So-
suggest listening to our guest at the moment, Elizabeth.
Yes.
If you're asking
For-
who
Yeah,
to trust.
Elizabeth, the answer is that you need to keep on talking to all of your local estate agents until you find one that you feel you can trust. And if there's any doubt, then you know you can't trust them. And when you find the one you can trust, you will know it. I have this catchphrase I use in my live streams, which is disregard the guff, right?
Oh, yes.
Disregard the guff, or just right. You'll know, because someone that you can trust will come around and sit down in your home and they will shut their trap and listen to you until you have finished telling them everything that you want to say. They won't be interested in selling you their brand or selling you their company. They'll be interested in finding out what your position is, exactly how you're feeling, what your priorities are, and you'll know when you find that person. And if you just keep talking to, you might need to talk to 15 before you find one, right? But if you keep on talking to, don't just, the worst advice ever, and all the media gives us advice is pick 3. That's a terrible advice, because that puts you at an 80% chance of getting a bad agent if you just pick 3 at random, right? Keep on talking to them until you find one that you trust.
You've just reminded me of something which was so bizarre. I was buying a house and I went to a beautiful estate. And the wife is showing me around the house. It's a very nice house. I'm halfway up the stairs. You've got to picture this. And I swear to God, this is absolutely true. So the wife is on the top landing talking to me. I'm halfway up the stairs and a bloke arrives at the bottom of the stairs. Never forgotten this, ever. And he goes, "Who the bloody hell are you?" Well, he put it a little more strongly than that, right? And I went, "Oh, hello, I'm Russell. I'm just looking." "What do you mean you're looking around the house?" The wife had not told the husband that she was selling the house. I'm swear to God, I'm standing on the staircase. She's at the top, he's at the bottom. I'm the cheese in the sandwich. I'm thinking, holy God, get me out of this. So I go, well, I'm going to let you two sort this out. And I leave. So I run to my car and the wife's banging on the window of my car. Go, "No, we can work this out. We can work this out." I said, "I don't think so. Bye." And I just popped the clutch and I burnt rubber. Never, ever forgot.
I'd have loved to have been a fly on the wall with the conversation after that between
Can
them
you
two.
imagine, Neil? Can you imagine? God,
I'll tell you something. Actually, something is I feel is also worth mentioning is that there is an enormous debate around the mental health of estate agents, and one of the things that the public is never ever aware of is, when most of your clients are going through an already stressful time, you're often dealing with people who are the best in the world. They're very difficult to deal with because they're emotional, they're irrational, they may be divorcing. And this, remember, you don't earn a penny as an estate agent going through all of that until you actually get a sale. And how many people decide they're going to sell, then change their mind. And on top of that real challenge, and I promise you, being an estate agent is one of the most difficult jobs you will ever hear about, other than perhaps people in healthcare. I would put it down as probably the hardest job there is. And then the pressures from within.
I don't want to be rude. I really don't. I mean, you're an expert and you're very famous and all the rest of it. But I think being a doctor, making life or death decisions, and not saying
He
to
did say
Stephen,
apart from
"I've
healthcare."
forgotten to mention the freaking cladding." Sorry, Mr. Smith.
No. I made an exception for people in healthcare. That's the only exception. But for people in normal commercial work, there is no more difficult job than I know of. I've been offered 6-figure sums to become an estate agent, and there's no amount of money I do it for, because you are dealing with highly emotional, highly irrational people going through a very stressful period of their life on a daily basis. And on top of that, some of the largest employers, the big corporate employers, are applying horrendous pressure to their staff and expecting their staff to be dishonest to hit targets. And you've got good people who've taken a job. You hear stories about people saying, "Do not let people view a house unless they talk to our mortgage broker in house." That's illegal, and they make their staff do it. So you've got a combination, and I'm saying this because I want people to to be empathetic towards employed estate agents. You do not know what pressure they are under from their boss. And like anyone else, they're human beings trying to make a living. Now, if you're dealing with the owner of an estate agency, that's different. You can question them on their conduct and their ethics, right? But when it's an employee, it's a bit different. I'm not excusing any of the poor conduct. But again, empathy works both ways. And there's a very serious mental health problem in estate agents.
I owe Elizabeth an apology. Sue Sleet up in Fife in Scotland. I agree with Elizabeth being single. When I sold my London house, I saw several estate agents who kept asking how much I had to give my ex, as this would depend how much they put it on the market for. I ended up using an online agent because I didn't have to say what my gender was. Yeah. By the way, Ramsey's thing, this is, if you've never seen this series, it's hilarious. And my daughter told me to watch it.
About that,
it's called Stathlet's Flats. Find it on Channel 4. It's hilarious. Hilarious. If you've never seen it, you're in for a treat. I promise. Yeah, some people say it's a documentary. It's the problem.
And people, of course, Charlie, don't make good decisions when they're under stress anyway, do they?
No, we don't.
So I can totally empathise with what you say about it being a difficult job, because if you're dealing with people that are stressed, they're not in their logical mind. They're not going to make good decisions.
Yeah. I truly. I'm not making excuses for any of the bad conduct that happens, but it is
I appreciate
one of the most misunderstood. It's one of the most misunderstood jobs that there is out there. I promise you.
One of the things is, Charlie, when you've got your house, you might be pleased with it or not, but it's your house, it's your home, and then somebody comes in a very untactful way and starts making derisory comments. You just want to slap them.
Yeah. This is what happens when you pick 3 agents at random. That's what happens. You've got to be much.
See, I'd never thought of that statistic before. If you pick 3, you've got an 80% chance of getting a bad one. But I've learned something today. So your mission, if anything, is you're about to
going to say. Sorry.
But Charlie, are you saying we should have like an open day where you have 10 estate agents come over and have a look? Because people don't have a lot of time in their hands, and each time a estate agent comes over, say it takes an hour for them to look around. Your advice, so you have an open day.
One of the things that we've done with Best Agent is we've made it easy for a seller who doesn't know who they want to choose. They pop the details in there, and we invite 20 agents to make a private video message pitch to the customer. Right. This means that you get to say, I don't want that person coming around my house. I don't want this person coming around my house. But the one question to ask an estate agent, which they don't like being asked, but it will very, very quickly sort out the people you can trust, the ones you can't, is this. You say to them, if you weren't an estate agent around here, who would you recommend that I should use?
God, how would they answer that? I've got a very technical question. Charlie, I've got a technical question for you, because it reminds me, popped into my head when I was selling my house. Some of the bigger agencies, I'm not naming any names, would say, well, if you go with us, this is the rate. If you go with others, that's the percentage we charge. But if we are the sole agency, we only charge that. Is that legal?
Are you talking about the difference? Yes. Are you talking about the difference between sole agent and multi-agent?
Yes.
Because that's standard practice. So if you're just choosing, if it's sole agency, they have a sole agency rate. If it's multi-agency and you're instructing more than one agent, then it is typically done at a higher rate, because they've got a lower chance of earning a fee and they've still got to work on it.
I really want to hear what your mission is.
Yes,
you're saying my mission in life, if anything, is.
So. My working mission is a home for everyone, and if I can, the estate agency industry is actually a pivotal part of that vision eventually coming true. And not only this is buying, renting, it's dealing with people in temporary accommodation and ultimately people in the streets as well. There is a way that can be fixed, and estate agents are actually the people best placed to facilitate that. So, and it goes towards the whole topic of people's mental health and state of mind, is that, all the bad things estate agents do, you get just the same bad behavior in any other industry. It just doesn't matter as much because it's not about selling your home. When you get stiffed by a plumber, it's annoying and it's a waste of money, but it's not life-changingly bad. When you get let down by an estate agent, you miss out on your next home. So that's why there's this perception that they're so much worse than anyone else. They're no better or worse than any other industry in terms of their behavior, in terms of their sales pushing. I mean, there's government intervention, there's banking intervention.
Means more.
It does mean more.
What a show! What a show! I'm going to have a lie down. Except I've got to do a podcast.
I know. Well, I'm going to have to start a charity for estate agents.
God, you two. Stephen Smith, bless you as always.
It was lovely to come on. I'll see you soon for a drink in Soho.
Yes, please. We will catch up for a drink.
Take care, Stephen. All the best.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Charlie, an absolute pleasure. Charlie, an absolute pleasure to meet you. Really is.
Thank you, guys.
My love to
Charlie,
Julia,
mhwc.co.uk. I would love at some point in the future to hear your vision of how estate agents are the people to facilitate this change, even for people who are homeless and stuff like that. Because that's a hell of a cliffhanger. So I'd love you to come back at some point.
See if we can fit us in with his schedule. We don't know.
Yeah.
Charlie Lambden, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We'll be back on
Thank
Wednesday.
you very much for having
Till
me.
then, my pleasure. Stay out of trouble.
All right.
Bye-bye.